All right. The other question this morning is how feasible would it be if existing transport organizations like the OA Transport, VIP, decided to enter the intracity? I think the challenge we are facing is the intracity transportation. Intercity seems to be fairly okay. Accra, Kumasi, Tamale to Sunyani and all those are pretty okay. At least we haven't heard too much. Of course, during the Christmas break, we heard that there were people stranded at lorry stations, but that's more cyclical and seasonal. What we are seeing is an unprecedented challenge with commuting within urban spaces, and the GPRTU has not been able to manage this very well. Yesterday, the Minister for Transport spoke to the media. He says they are doing some things to ease the challenge. Let me just play you the audio of what he said. Joseph Bukari Nikpe says he's been engaging with Metro Mass Transit and STC as part of measures to curb the problem.
It was initial arrangements just to cater for the festive periods, which we did, and it was very helpful. But we realized that when they were withdrawn, it created some challenges. So I re-engaged the MD of Metro Mass Transit Limited and then the Intercity STC coaches, and they have reintroduced some few of them. We are looking at the daily basis movement and seeing if we need to add more, then we'll add more. Again, we are also at the verge of seeing how we can get the private sector to bring in more of the buses and other vehicles to be able to help when it gets to peak hours in the mornings and in the evenings.
So during December, they engaged STC to supply some buses to augment the routes. We don't know how long that lasted. It's very clear that's not a solution that's going to be sustainable, because STC itself doesn't have enough buses. STC itself is struggling. I'm told they are expecting some buses in March. Let's hear from the GPRTU. They have been speaking about this. The Deputy Industrial and Public Relations Officer, Samuel Amwa, has been speaking to ChannelOne Newsroom on the challenge commuters face.
I heard the communication minister when he came out with this explanations about shortage of vehicles, and some of the vehicles even don't come to the stations, and rather has chosen not to work, and that has caused passengers to be stranded and all that. You see, the GPRTU will never ever encourage our drivers not to come to the station to come and pick vehicles, but rather advise them or support them by going using the roadside to be picking passengers. Let me establish this fact that the GPRTU, we are transport union, that when the vehicles come to the station to come and pick passengers, there is a toll that they pay, there is a dues that they pay. So how come we will not ask them to come to the stations? Those problems that are happening at the roadside, where you find passengers being stranded and drivers taking advantage of that and charging them unapproved fares and all that. Those vehicles that do that don't belong to the union, because we have made some checks to find out that our unions or our union vehicles are part of those vehicles that practices this issue of charging unapproved fares. And the result that we have been receiving is that most of them are floating vehicles. So that is why even today we had a brief meeting, and we are organizing ourselves to hit the street, to pick our union guys and our task force team to make sure that if our vehicles are being found that they are doing that, we will quickly cause their arrest, and then there is a sanction that will be applied to them. But those that don't belong to the unions, that we have some small challenges with that. Even as I'm speaking to you, we are having a meeting. We'll be having a meeting with the transport minister, hopefully by Friday. And these are some of the issues we are going to talk about. But we ourselves are not happy with what is happening, at the transport sector now.
Mr. Moore, there are some allegations against drivers, and you say they're not your members. So how then do you address the situation of drivers who pick, for lack of a better term, shots? You know, so they're going to circle, but they'll get to Tesano and take a new fare to Abeka and take a new fare before they get to circle. How do you intend to address that issue?
Oh, okay, so at our various stations, supposing you are at circle and you want to go to Nsawam, and you go to Nsawam station where they pick Nsawam vehicles, you know, you pay Nsawam fare, and we'll make sure that the driver will take you to Nsawam. But what is happening is, when you pick the vehicle by the roadside, and maybe the driver will tell you, I am going to Achimota or I'm going to Pokwase, then you get on board. When you get to Pokwase, he will probably alight you at Pokwase. Meanwhile, maybe the driver, you know, he's going to Nsawam all right, but because he didn't pick you from the station, that is why they normally do that. And we always encourage the passengers to come to the stations. So when you come to the station and you pick a vehicle that is going to your destination, there is no way the driver will just alight you halfway and be charging you SS and all that.
Right. Fuel prices and spare parts have reduced, yet fares remain unchanged. Can you explain this phenomenon to us?
Yes, fuel prices, yes, it has been reduced. We have a percentage threshold that we normally use. I quite remember when we had our 15% reduction in April last year. But then the fuel price was around 13 cedis thereabout when we had that reduction of 15%. After that, it went down. It went up again to 14 to 15, then it started coming down again. We are monitoring, but the spare parts, you see, the spare parts has not been reduced. We have had series of meetings with the Spare Parts Dealers Association, probably the Abosokan Spare Parts Dealers Association, and we told them that, or we came out that our parts has not been reduced. Yes, they came out with some list of parts that they have reduced, and those parts we are not using them. Those vehicle that are those vehicle parts that has been reduced, we are not using those vehicles. The vehicles we are using is the Sprinter buses, the Toyota Haze buses, the Nissan buses. Those are the buses we use for trotro.
So that was the Deputy Industrial and Public Relations Officer of GPRTU, Samuel Amwa, speaking to Eno Safo of Citi and ChannelOne. Now, let me go back to what the minister said. The minister said they have introduced buses to ease congestion and that they had engaged with Metro Mass Transit and STC to have some buses recalled to support these routes. Mohamed Mubarak Ouattara is the head of communications for Metro Mass. Let's get some comments from him on this issue. Mohamed, thanks for joining us. Good morning.
Good morning.
So, Minister of Transport says he has engaged your organization and STC to introduce some buses to ease the congestion commuters in Accra are facing at peak hours. Can you confirm if this is true, and how many buses of Metro Mass are going to be deployed on which routes?
Thank you very much, Mr. Able. Good morning to your listeners. It's true. I can confirm that the minister met with Metro Mass and our sister companies to make sure that we make some buses available for the rush hours. And Metro Mass, we are able to do that, even though at the moment our fleet of buses are very low, but we've been able to adjust to what the minister directed. So what we did is we are able to, at the time that we close, we've changed the time that we close. And mostly, you know, Metro Mass, we do intra-city. Intra-city, that is what Metro Mass normally do. So what we have to do is that we have to increase some of the routes, not all, because of the lack of fleet of buses, that the low of fleet of buses that we are having. So at the moment, what we do is that from Adenta to Accra to Adenta, we are using the EV buses. We only have 10 EV buses, and all has been working through Accra to Adenta from 4:30 p.m. to even after 8 p.m. Our EV buses is working through that route. Then we have Kaneshie to Kaswa. We've now even increased a station, another one in our yard for Kaswa. Mostly it was at the Kaneshie terminal. Now we've added another one at the head office, the main head office yard from Kaneshie to Kaswa. Then we have from Circle to Amasamai and Nkoko area too. We've also added another bus.
Okay.
Now we reduce some
Mohammed.
of the buses that goes to Kumasi and Cape Coast just because of what to take care of intra-city.
So let me get you right. You have reduced some of the intercity services to deploy those buses for intra.
Intra, yes.
So are they operating from your regular stations or they operate from the normal trotro stations? So for example, this Adenta to Accra or Kaneshie to Kaswa route, will the additional buses be at regular stations or your regular? How would they be? How will people know?
People know because when we look at the number of commuters and compared to now, it means that people really know that we've increased our buses. The reason I'm saying that is when I look at from Circle to Kaswa, it has been increased we've added more than 5 buses to take care of that. One thing is that because of private operators, because they charge high, all of the passengers mostly come to our yard, our terminal to board our buses because our bus is the lowest in the country when it comes to fare.
I see.
So yes.
All right. The reason I'm asking is that you have just 115 buses, at least as of November, I'm told. Yes. You are only operating 85 routes. Indeed, you were originally supposed to serve 385 routes. And you are operating only 85 routes because you don't have enough buses. You have only 115 buses for the whole country. So I was wondering how such a seriously deprived company can be a solution to a problem like this. So, I mean, and again, your buses themselves don't look in good shape. They look very old and in fact, one of your officials said to us recently that the previous administration had even sold over 700 buses as scrap. So your fleet level had gone down. In fact, you said your fleet level was at an all-time low in the history of the company. So I'm wondering how such a company can supplement any transport route.
That is true, Mr. Havlet. And as my deputy MD operation said some few months ago, it's true. This is the time that our fleet level is very low. And at the same time, this is the time that our revenue has increased in the history of the company due to the measures that the current MD and his deputies have put in place. One good thing is that very soon, by the end of this month or in the middle of next month, we are going to receive over 350 buses. But for now, due to the congestion in the city, so we are also trying to help because Metro Mass is there to support the vulnerable. So far as in the country, we are facing these challenges. We are doing everything possible to make sure that we will help and at the same time adjust to make sure that the intercity too, we will also serve them and serve them well. One thing is that after Christmas, the intercity has come down a bit, and that is what is helping us to support the intracity movement so that it will help.
I see.
All
right.
Help us.
The government announced, the minister announced in Parliament, I think October, November, that he was planning to procure 500 new buses over the short term to strengthen your operations. And he said those buses will come early 2026. We are in early 2026. Have the buses come yet?
No, the buses hasn't come. And that's what I'm saying, that God willing, by the end of this month of February, because last month, the MD and Deputy Minister went to do the final inspection. But when they went, there were some few things that they need to add. Because this time, my brother, there is changes in the transport business. So when we also don't change and also do the old way, I think that we still not get the customers that we want to get. So when they went, there was a few changes they have to add. That's the reason why we haven't been able to receive the buses as I'm talking to you. But God will, inshallah, by the end of this month, or first week of February, the new bus fleet of buses will be available.
Thank you for your time and for those comments. We've been speaking to the head of communication at Metro Mass Transit Limited, Mubarak Mohammed Watara, who's confirming that indeed they have deployed some of the intercity services for intracity. So he said, for example, the Accra Kumasi, some of those buses have been deployed to do the Kasua Kaneshie and the Adenta to Accra. But he did admit that they are expecting some buses next month, and that's possibly going to help. Let me say that we have more interviews coming up. We are trying to understand if the GAPTE is also functioning properly. This is the Greater Accra. What's GAPTE even stand for? Greater Accra Passenger Transport Executive. GAPTE. They are supposed to be the people running the bus rapid transit, which they changed to some other name because the the BRT wasn't running. Caleb, remember they changed it, they gave it a different name. They call it the quality bus something.
Yes.
They are the people with the longest type of buses, but even those are not enough. So we like to check with them as well what they're doing. And then we will talk to a transport sort of consultant to explain to us what the real solution is to our urban mobility problems. The deputy director in charge of the GAPTE, lawyer Dauda, I think that's the name, right? Dauda, acting managing director, right? Acting managing director. So, what role are they playing in helping to solve this recent mobility problem, and how well equipped are they? Lawyer, thanks for joining us. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, sir. Good morning to our listeners and everyone.
Good. So, since you took over at GAPTE, what is the state of the organization in terms of how many buses do you have? What are the main routes you run? Just give us an overview of the organization before I come to specifics.
Yes. It is important at this stage that I introduce myself to our listeners. My name is Dawood Audu. I'm the acting MD for GAPTE, Greater Accra Passenger Transport Executive, in short GAPTE. We have oversight responsibility over the operation of the AGOA buses, which runs in Greater Accra. It is important that we discuss this morning how our operations have been relative to what is happening in Greater Accra. We took over from the former MD of GAPTE somehow May, June, there about there. Ayalolo as a bus operating company, which is quite different from the GAPTE itself, for some time now had issues to the extent that we all know what happened in 2004, 2006, where most of the buses that were supposed to be used in Greater Accra under the Ministry for Transport, they took over 60 buses to Ashanti region. These were buses that were meant for the operation of the operation of these buses for Greater Accra alone. Because when it comes to urban mobility, we are all aware that urban mobility is very, very important when it comes to economic development of any country, especially so when we are having issues relative to getting more buses into the system where we have passengers complaining each and every day. So when I took over, we were left with only 80 buses out of the 245 that government of Ghana procured in 2016 that are about there. The 245 buses that were meant for the operation in Greater Accra alone. 60 buses were taken to Kumasi, to Ashanti region, specifically Kumasi. 10 buses were taken to Akrade. Some of the buses were also sent to Tamale. But these were done at the behest of the then Ministry of Transport. And in doing that, it affected the operation of Ayilulu as a bus company in Greater Accra. So when I took over as acting MD, the first thing I had to do with the consultation of my sector minister, the local government minister, what I did was to write to the people who had in charge of these buses in Kumasi, for which I have been granted leave for the 60 buses, for which we are going to add it to these buses that we are having in Greater Accra. So that's the first thing. 2, remember I initially said that we had 245 buses. Some of the buses were taken elsewhere, which affected our operation in Greater Accra. There were broken vehicles as well. Some of the buses were broken down. So when I came in, and then they handed over 70 to 90 buses to us. About 60 buses were there, broken. So what we did was to repair all these buses. We don't have any money from anybody. Through our own means, we're trying as much as possible to have these vehicles and the buses repaired, operational vehicles, the buses, so that they could come in to also help with the fleet that we had, which we have done. Now, towards Christmas, remember, there were issues relative to these buses in Greater Accra, especially so when there were much complaints as to whether or not there were availability of buses, whether or not there were people who were in the queue for buses. Then what Ayelolo did was to beef up the buses that we were using on our corridors. Already we have about 5 corridors in Greater Accra. We have the Amasaman, we have Vancouver, we have Adenta, we have the Kimbu area, all these areas, and then even Tama. These are our traditional corridors that we run. But because of the issues relative to congestion that we knew we were going to encounter during the Christmas period, the 90 buses that we were using for our operations for the normal corridors, we increased them to 155. So as I'm talking to you right now, Ayelolo, as a bus company operating under GAPTE, we have 155 buses put across all our corridors. And that's how come that when you go out there in the morning, you see some of these Ayelolo buses at Kimbu, Amasaman, at Chimota, and then Tema, even Tema station, you see at the Ayelolo buses. Now,
so you are running, is it 135 or 185?
135.
135. 135.
135, yes. Amasaman alone, if you look at Amasaman, the Amasaman corridor, it's a warm coming towards Achimota area, the Ablekuma, it's a very big, vast area. We are running over 45 buses from there. But there's a reason why I'm giving you a general view, so that when I'm done, I will come to why some of these buses that you see out there, there are challenges when it comes to transport matters in Greater Accra. Now, with the 24-hour economy policy, what we did was that in the normal shift, somewhere a normal driver who comes to work around 4 a.m. ordinarily probably will close around 3 p.m. So what we did was that if we meant to go by the 3 p.m. for which the driver will leave GAPTE and then come the following day, why don't we just go by 24-hour economy staff and then we go by 3 shifts? So now, we are doing 3 shifts, we are doing morning shift, we are doing afternoon shift, we are doing evening shift. So that was experimented during the Christmas time, where we were doing early morning, we were doing afternoon, we were doing evening, and then late night. At least when it comes to transport, one has to be very careful when it comes to safety. So the drivers could not be running from morning to the following day. That's how come that we did the three shifts. Yes, like we added small to it in terms of meeting our target during the Christmas period. So that is how the Ayelolo as a company works under GAPTE. So you have Greater Accra Passenger Transport Executive that has oversight responsibility when it comes to transport planning, network development, public transport regulation, which is unique in character from the operation of Ayelolo buses. So you realize that the Ayelolo buses as a company runs under GAPTE. Why? Because GAPTE is the agency and the local government ministry that is responsible for urban mobility. And that's the main reason why you have the Ayelolo buses working under GAPTE.
Fair enough. I wanted to clarify a few points. So your busiest route is the Amasaman to Accra route, which has about 45 buses per day, correct?
So we do Amasaman, yes, please, yes.
Do you also do the Kasua route?
Yeah, we do Kaswa. Kaswa, we do Kaswa. I think I mentioned it earlier.
How many buses do you have on the Kaswa route?
Kaswa, we do not less than 25.
What about
mechanism?
What about the Adenta route?
Let me help you with something there. With the Kaswa, the number of buses, we have normal marketing days. So it is not always that if you have 25 buses, so we use the average. So for instance, on Mondays and Tuesdays, ordinarily we do more buses. We do like 25, 26, at times even 30 buses. Tuesday, the same thing. But Wednesday and Thursday, it comes down a bit because at the end you realize that others are also doing their trade when it is Thursday and...
Very good.
Yes.
So 25 average, but you could do more depending on days. What about Adenta? Do you do the Adenta route or the Medina route?
Yes, we do Adenta route. In fact, our office, our traditional office, in fact, is at Adenta. And Adenta has a terminal, which is critical. So you have most of the buses packed at Adenta. So we do Adenta.
That's the Maya Hot Junction.
Yes, so we do even beyond Adenta.
How many buses do you do for that corridor? So Dodowa, Adenta to Accra. It's the same general area.
I think Adenta to Kimbu to Adenta to Dodowa. These are three areas that we apply, depending on the whether it is peak or whether we need more buses. But usually we do 2025.
2025. Okay. Do you do Tema or Afienya areas? Or you don't use those areas?
We do Tema, but see, let me go back a bit to explain the Tema. Tema is a bit far. What happens there is that I need to put that one in perspective so that you could understand where I'm coming from. We do Tema, but if you look at the buses already. We didn't get Accra itself. Amasaman, you are talking about Achimota, Kimbu, and Adenta. There are issues. So with the Tema, because it is from Accra, Kimbu to Tema, we have 4 to 5 buses. Safe to add that when we started with the railway line, yes, so we had to use 2 of our buses, I think 2 or 3 of our buses to the railway authority for them to also use them. To augment the operation. So we have 2 or 3 of our yellow buses which are stationed at the railway terminals. At least when the passenger arrives, quickly you can join the yellow bus straight to town.
All right. When Ayalolo was introduced, we were told that, of course, when it was BRT, it would have dedicated lanes. Number 2, people would buy tickets electronically, and number 3, it would be comfortable and some sort of premium kind of service. I'm not sure the dedicated lanes are working. I'm not sure if people actually buy tickets or just pay cash. And it appears to me that the buses are very loaded. And these days, instead of the 40 people sitting down and 9 people standing, sometimes I can see even 70 people in the Ayalolo bus. So it looks like Ayalolo has become more like a trotro with green color. That's the way it looks to me from outside. I don't know what your comment is.
Yeah, thank you very much. If you look at the vision that the NDC government had in 2015-2016 when they introduced the BRT system by bringing the 245. The main objective was to ease congestion in Greater Accra, especially when it comes to people moving from one place to the other, urban mobility. So that is how come that you have terminals at Delta, we have terminal at Kimbu, I'm talking about Accra Central, we have terminal there. The essence of the BRT relative to the operation of the Ayalolo buses was that we had a principle called park and ride. What that meant was that you'll have, if probably you are around Amasaman or probably you are around Adenta or around Kimbu, you will only go there with your normal vehicle, your sedan vehicle, whatever it is. Then you park and join a Ayalolo bus and then you move. And then you go by the dedicated lanes. Now, were the dedicated lanes created during the 2016 period when the NDC government put in the Ayalolo buses? Yes, they were created. Under the MPP government, those dedicated lanes were taken off, and it is critical. And I'm making a statement of fact that when you take Tezana Road, When you go there right now, you realize that the dedicated lanes are there. You see a yellow BRT or something that is there. The bus lane is there.
Okay, so now NDC is back in office for a year. Are you going to?
I'm making a point. It is important. It is important.
I know.
It is important. It's something that I am working tirelessly on that with the Ministry for Transport and then Roads and Highway. It is critical. Let us put the politics aside and go to the. But I'm making a point here, which is administrative in nature. Now, as an agency, when you come and you realize that the BRT system, there's a problem when it comes to the dedicated lane. The point I'm making here is that these dedicated lanes were there, and they were in the operation of these buses. But then there was another administration that came and said, but the dedicated lanes, they are there. They are meant for human beings to fly. So why can't anybody at all also use that? And that's how come that you see some of these dedicated lanes being used by private users instead of the buses. So when I took over, what I had done was that the first thing that I did was to write to them that we would want to use the dedicated lanes in our operation, and they are working on that. So you have the Ministry of Transport, and then of course, the dedicated lanes, usually when they are done and they are gazetted, it's the Ministry of Transport that will have to
we will go back to dedicated lanes. So we'll go back to dedicated lanes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Last question I have for you. You have 135 operational. We noticed Accra has a congestion problem. These past 4-5 weeks have been very bad. What is the optimal number of buses that you need to run the BRT in a way that will ease congestion?
Yes, it's a very, very important question. The issue of congestion is only about buses. It is critical. I have made this point not only now but elsewhere. But if you are talking about the road network, we are talking about the assemblies. You realize that we have the MMDAs in Greater Accra, and all of them are members of GAPTE. Now, it's not only about the buses. You could have about 1 million buses running. If you're not careful, they may even add up to the congestion. But it is the way the buses are run. It is within our expectation that if we had 400 to 500 buses across Greater Accra area, not a Greater Accra region, because the Greater Accra area, I'm talking about Kaswa in addition to the ones that we have within Greater Accra. I'm adding even Tama. And that's the reason why I'm using the Greater Accra area. Now we have some of these buses put across together with the fact that we have the MMDCs coming into play. We have transport offices where we have the officers coming to also help. Now we have the police as well for enforcement. For instance, we just spoke about the dedicated lanes. Now, if the dedicated lanes were there and then you don't have a police officer running or manning such areas to enforce the use of the area, of course you would have issues. So it is not only about the buses. It is a problem that must be tackled from a very holistic point.
I understand that, yes. But I still believe that you can do with more buses, correct?
Yes. You see, like I said, within the range of 400 about it. But the good news here is that these are buses that are run on normal diesel.
Yes, so, just hold on for me. I want to understand something. You are saying there are many factors that will determine your operational efficiency, not a problem.
Yes.
But you're saying if you got between 400 and 500, in addition to other factors, it will ease the congestion, correct?
No, the point I'm making here is that in general is that when we speak about issues of transportation, if there are matters of transportation in Greater Accra or anywhere in Ghana, we should not limit the discussion to only availability of buses. It goes beyond the buses. So if you have buses around and the road network is bad, for instance, if you don't have a dedicated lane and you have 40 buses moving, how are they coming back?
I understand that, but it's still within that.
They'll be stuck in traffic, please.
I know, thank you for that explanation. And I'm saying that having accepted that point, there is still an optimal number of buses you would need. So, for example, I spoke to Metro Mass this morning. They have 115 buses. The government has promised to provide them some 700 more buses because clearly the 115 are not enough. So yes, roads have to be fixed, bus terminals have to be arranged. So what I'm trying to get from you is that in addition to everything else, is the 135 enough? If it is not, how many do you need?
I think I'm not at all. That one probably is around. I have done the feasibility studies. It's about 400 and 450 buses or so. But then I wanted to add by saying that apart from the 450 buses that we are thinking probably what we get them in Greater Accra for the right now of the intracity mobility system, we would shift from the normal combustion fuel buses to electric buses, and that is what I'm aiming at.
Right.
I have worked tirelessly to getting that one done. Currently, as I'm speaking to you, I'm in touch with the Spanish government. Very soon, we will see how we'll be able to get some of these electric buses in the country, especially for our mobility system in Greater Accra. I'm also in touch with other companies, and so which I'm almost done. So very, very soon, we should be able to see some of these EV buses in Greater Accra. The only challenge, which probably just give me one minute, it is important that I bring it on board. That if you have or city buses, all of them moving from Accra to Tama, and then you see you have the queue probably lying in Accra. I'm talking about the Kimbu area there, and then the buses go and the buses take all of them straight to Tama. When the buses are coming, it is called when the buses are coming towards that angle, it means that they will not be picking any passenger there, but you'll be using for. So you see why I was telling you that it demands a holistic approach. Ministry for Local Government, we have Ministry for Transport, rules, all of us, we put our heads together and then we resolve this matter.
We appreciate what you're saying. When we do know this, if you've listened to us, we discuss this all the time. But of course, you've come in to explain that it's a multifaceted problem, which is absolutely true. So thank you for talking to us. Keep us updated on the successes you chalk with regards to the dedicated lanes being given back to Ayalolo, because I think that's a very crucial point. There's also a conversation about contraflow, where contraflow means that, I'm sure you know what contraflow means. In the mornings, because a lot of people are coming towards Accra, those who are going away from Accra, there's not enough vehicles on that lane. And that we should experiment with even giving some of those lanes to the buses so that it would ease the congestion, so that Ayalolo can move faster. I don't know if it's part of your discussion, this idea of contraflow.
Those are the GPRTU. So I've done the I just took over, but I have done all that. But I'm pretty sure by next month or so, I'll take the Minister for Local Government, Chief Tenancy and Affairs, together with the Transport Minister, will put their heads together. And once I'm getting the green card from there and there, then all these things will be done.
Thank you.
And so we are working tightly. And anytime that you need me, please, I'm available.
I'll call you. Daouda Audu is the Managing Director of GAPTE. Thanks for your time. 8:38 City Breakfast. We'll read a few comments. We asked listeners to tell us how they get to work. I'll end this segment later by speaking to David Fosu-Dorte, who's been doing transport policy for a long time. We'll speak to him about some of the issues we're facing with transport, and also a couple of questions around the restoration of AGOA and the China opportunities. Caleb and Kakra and Godfred, we asked listeners to tell us how they commute, whether things have gotten worse.
Yeah.
We've spoken to GAPTE, we've spoken to Metro Mass.
Yeah.
Please read some of the comments.
So the situation is really bad. We can't tell whether this is being created by station operators or by drivers and their mates. From Medina to so many officially cost 25 Ghana cedis, but we are forced to pay 50 Ghana cedis after spending nearly 3 hours in a queue. The passenger volumes at Medina are overwhelming, and if you don't agree to pay the double fare, you are simply sacked. This is unfair to commuters and something must be done. Dede Kosi Latte sent that from Kanda. Ashaman to Bechile and Afienya, we pay 7 cedis in the morning and 10 cedis in the evening because we are unable to get vehicles. Good morning, Bernard. Commuting is already difficult for able-bodied people. Imagine how much harder it is for those of us living with disabilities. Most vehicles are not accessible. Drivers are often reluctant to pick us, and even with the Ayalolo service, the conductors frequently load goods into the space reserved for wheelchairs. It feels like a punishment, and we are not living, we are struggling. Kofi Apia sent that. Bernard and team, this issue about transportation is not a mini crisis, it's a major one. I mostly move from Medina West Junction to Abelengbe, and just for this short distance, I can spend about an hour or more to get to work. There is difficulty getting vehicle. Those taking the short trips also charge higher. I would say I spend double of what I should I should each day on transportation. Not forgetting those guys who hang around trying to get the trotro mates to pay them for people standing in their supposed bus stops. I honestly think they are partly to be blamed for all the extortions from the trotros. They are one of the nuisance on our roads. What is the police doing, by the way? You add.
Thank you, Caleb. I've received information from the Interministerial Committee on Coordination Decentralization that they are meeting the Minister for Transport, the Minister for Local Government, and the GAPTE on the issue of urban mobility, and they will keep us posted. This is following our interview yesterday with Dr. Gameli. So we understand there's a meeting to coordinate, because as I said, this has become so serious that even the communication minister also commented on it yesterday, the role of GPRTU and all of this. Let's speak to David Fosudote, who's been, I think his original training is a transport something. Yeah. David is a senior partner for ABN. David, help me here. You are a logistics guy from beginning before you became a lawyer, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Wonderful.
And I know that you've been involved in transport policy formulation for many years, and this bus rapid transit thing is something that you have been involved in the past, correct?
Yeah, that's also correct.
Good. So for the past at least 6 weeks, people in Accra have been struggling to get access to buses to go home. I believe we have a mobility crisis on our hands, even though it hasn't been officially admitted by the government. Everywhere we go, people are standing on the roadside. They don't have access to cars. Trotros are just misbehaving. They will pick you from Adenta, drop you at Legon, collect the same people, take you to 37. It's just crazy. GPRTU says those people are not their members. Ayalolo has 135 buses running. I'm sure they could do with more. Metro Mass was supposed to operate 350 routes. They are operating only 85. They have only 115 buses. STC don't have buses. They are waiting for buses in March. So clearly, we have a challenge, and we don't even have a diverse system of transportation. How did we get here, and what did we miss? I want you to sort of put into context for me this confusion I've just described.
Okay, thank you, Bernard, and good morning to your listeners. I mean, this is a very, very, very complex problem, and the crisis is not new. We've had it for a very long time because we have tended to politicize things over the period. So I will take you all the way back to 1974, that far. That is when the problem appeared to have begun. And as a result, the government then, the military government, if you recall, attempted to solve it by introducing something called the Omnibus Licensing Authority. It had two arms. One was the Omnibus Services Authority, which is the bus services called OSA, which later became Metro Bus. And then the Omnibus Licensing Decree, which was to license routes among others. But of course, as the bus part was done, the regulatory part was never done until government changed. Then you will notice sometime in the Lehman regime, Sawyer introduced Citi Express. Now I got to a point where Citi Express, instead of focusing on the intra-city services, which is what you are talking about, also branched into intercity services. It was a survival thing to enable them break even, because in intra-city, unless there is some amount of government support or some clear route licensing for you to do trip frequencies, you are unable to break even. But on the private sector side has been GPRTU, and at times we focus only on GPRTU. There were other organizations like Progressive Transport Union, Protua, GRHA, etc. And then there were other well-organized private operators, King's Theatre and King of Kings, for those who are old enough. King's Theatre and King of Kings were owned by private people, but they were organized and they have scheduled services. Now, before I move on, when I was young in secondary school, I schooled in Western Region. I knew when to go to the roadside. 7:15, the bus will be there, and it is there at 7:15. And I pick it and I get to school. Now, when the politics started coming in, the organizations broke into two. You had the Ghana Road Transport Council, which comprised all the others except GPRTU. Somehow along the line, the government somehow managed for them to come together with GPRTU to create what has become known today as the Ghana Road Transport Coordinating Council. So essentially, we had a cartel on our hands. Then the problem got worse. Remember, two things are very key for any urban transport system to work very well. One is who controls terminals and transit stops. Because every vehicle, whether it is a ship, and a ship is a vehicle, or an aircraft, or a bus, or a train, needs to come to a stop for somebody to join or alight, or for you to load goods or discharge. So when it comes to terminals, the one who controls it is the one who decides who can join and who can alight, and who can load and who cannot load. That's very critical. Now, at some point, we handed over the entire control of all terminals to GPRTU, and that's why the fight with GPRTU and the others. Now, if they control terminals, then it is difficult for them to actually improve quality and run scheduled services because it's a cartel. I actually wrote an article on this which won an award, but again, that's neither here nor there. Then we also need transit stops, that's in between main terminals, where you can stand by the roadside and pick a vehicle. At transit stops, you need to be able to predict that a vehicle will get there at this time or not at this time, and this is the type of vehicle that I can choose to join. I listened to your previous speaker. I mean, good, very, very good points. But when he talked about park and ride, one of the things he did not mention, you can only use park and ride when you still have a car, when you first have a car to park. If you don't have the parking base where the cars can park, there is nothing like park and ride. More important, the people who use the throttle are generally not people who have cars. Because of the nature of how we have destroyed the system, most people who are using it are either those who don't have cars or whose cars are broken down or who are going short distances they don't want to drive. So we have in our system a seller's market where the buyers who are the users of the buses and the throttles and the rest actually don't have a choice. In fact, there is something more inimical. I don't know whether they have removed it now. And I think Article 1 of the GPRTU Constitution, there's a provision which enables them to determine who can join a bus or a throttle on what they call the scale. The scale is simply the vehicle which is at a certain point loading. Now, if you notice, all these throttles operate on what we call a full load factor. Let me explain that. A load factor is simply the number of people in a vehicle. Now, every transport operator who understands his job will tell you that at 60% load, you break even, and above 60%, you make profit. But because we operate on full load factor, the bus or the throttles have to be full before they take off at the terminals. Now, as a result, you have a situation where you cannot predict what to stop at the next transit stop. So, when Ayalolo was introduced, or GAPTE, and again, he tried to explain the difference in GAPTE, we went into the next challenge. GAPTE was the regulator, and I was responsible for putting together the entire structure. At that time, we had 13 districts and metropolitan and municipal assemblies in the Greater Accra region. And GAPTE was organized and registered as a limited by guarantee entity to be organized by these 13 entities under what was designed to be called the Greater Metropolis approach. Simply put, because you have a lot of districts in Accra, but you cannot distinguish what district is next to what. So, if you take just the Liberation Road, on the right side you may have Ladma, and on the left side you may have the Ayawaso. Because you cannot distinguish these things, and because people who are move across these, you have to have them coordinating. The moment GAPTE was set up, something else happened. Subsequent governments then further divided Accra from 13 to 27. So they are thinking about 27 districts now. The new districts were not part of the agreement that signed GAPTE. So when a government decides to divide our country into districts, it is a transportation issue and a planning issue as well. So that was what caused the other chaos. The next one is the fact that these things work on certain principles. One is route licensing, which he has talked about. So since Ayalolo doesn't have all the buses or government cannot necessarily afford to keep pumping money, the concept of GAPTE was to license the routes to persons who can afford to buy and based on certain quality. Once the license regime is there and it's a commercial issue and the route is dedicated, it makes it easy to predict. It makes it easier for somebody to park his car and join a bus because the route is dedicated, he gets there on time, etc. Without dedicated routes and without good licensing, government has to keep pumping in the money and we have all the problems. The next thing you have is that because of this, people are forced to buy cars, then the congestion increases. And we forget the relationship between amount of road space dedicated to in any city, dedicated as against a percentage of the city. So I'll give you just some basic statistics and maybe we can pick it up from there. When about 1996, 1997, when I helped build the last major transport database before I decided to change professions and move into law, the trip frequencies to from Accra to Tema, just a simple analysis, had moved over 10 years from 8. What I'm saying is that it was possible for a trotro to do 8 trips between Accra and Tema in a day. It had dropped to 6. It dropped to 4. By 1996, we were already at 3. So a typical trotro which is operating between Accra and Tema can only do 3 or 4 trip frequencies at most. Now, the lesser your trip frequencies, the less commercially viable it becomes. So once we have messed up the system and created a congestion, it now makes the system even less viable, which is why people are forced to do full load factor. Anybody who wants to join a bus to go anywhere can only do it when he thinks it's predictable, it is neat, it is proximate to where he or he is going when he alights, or it is proximate to the next place where he can connect to another bus or trip, another vehicle to go. And these things are not rocket science. Lagos has it. Before GAPTE was introduced, they sent all these public servants to do a steady tour in the world. They went to Korotiba. I didn't join them for all those trips. I was in the private sector as a consultant. They went to Korotiba, then to Colombia. They came to Lagos. They did La Mata. La Mata works. You can go online now, and the Lagos Metropolitan Transport Authority, you can know which train, which is blue line or red line, and you can know which bus, which goes at what time. So predictability is what forces people to park their cars, then reduce congestion, and then be able to join a vehicle. So let me just pause here.
All right. So you've said a lot. You've given us the history of this previous attempt to solve it. You've explained the whole governance, the challenges that have led to this problem. The man I spoke to before, the current MD, said that one challenge he wants to deal with is to secure the dedicated lanes again, because according to him, the previous government sort of allowed the dedicated lanes to be used by all. When you look at the way Accra is, do we even have enough dedicated lanes for the BRT idea to ever work? And if it is, will reclaiming those dedicated lanes increase the trip frequency? Because I think that's the factor you used.
Well, the trip frequency is just one of them. I think you have to move this thing beyond just the symptoms we are looking at. Now, dedicated lanes is just one of the methods of solving a problem. How Accra itself is designed itself is also a problem, because cities actually expand in 3 ways. Either there's a central nodal point as a result of which they grow, like for example how Accra expanded from Jamestown, it's called a radial pattern, or how there is a linear, a main road connecting 2 points and everybody tries to connect the 2 points. For example, the development of Tema Harbour itself, moving the harbour from Jamestown to Tema Harbour, created a situation where you have a linear route and people build by the roadside and build behind the roadside and behind the roadside, etc. And you have all the congestion, so you have your left hand and right hand. And then you have the gradation pattern where you have planned. That is why places like Tema and Adabraka, because of the nature of the planning, you normally don't have congestion within these places. Now, if you take a city whose planning is as chaotic as Accra, dedicated lanes is not the only solution. So the way to solve the problem is to take pilot corridors, which is what GAPTE tried to do, using the Amasaman corridor as one. The other corridor was supposed to be the Kaswa corridor. Now, the Kaswa corridor, if you notice, I think they tried to do the bridge overpass around Graphic Road, and the idea was to put dedicated buses in the middle lane all the way to Kaswa. In fact, the Kaswa problem is bigger than the Amasaman problem, too, as far as I'm concerned. And again, it occurred because the way the 1989 to 1991 Accra Master Plan predicted Accra was going to expand to the Accra North. Then, unfortunately, it expanded to Kaswa, which is west of Accra. So, demographics and how people build their houses and how town planners and LUSPA allows people to build anywhere without control. Development control itself is a function that affects transportation. So you can do that by picking the corridors which are most congested. At the moment, you have the Medina corridor, the Teshi corridor, you have the Kaswa corridor, and then the Masaman corridor. And then you dedicate lanes to it. But when you dedicate lanes, I don't want to talk about politics. Previous government mentioned it. I don't get into those things. I'm a technocrat. When you do those dedicated lanes, you need to police it. If you don't police those dedicated lanes, people will drive on it. The way countries do it is that they then put a certain mark. For example, you go some countries, you see a lane at a certain color. Because you force private car users to go into the congestion, and because the buses are moving faster, they park their cars. That's when park and ride works.
Okay.
But it also works if the buses are neat and they are on schedule. Then you have a situation where when the peak is over, for example, the peak is normally over by 9:30 a.m. That is when you then open the lane for everybody to use. And in the evening, you do the contra flow you are talking about, where the reverse is the case. So these are things I believe we should just pilot corridors. And depending on the sources of it, then we can expand it to other corridors, because the design is so chaotic. You can't solve the problem at the same time.
All right. I'll take note of this pilot corridor and come back to it later, not on this interview. But from my layman point of view, when I look at the various options for mobility for commuters, I notice on the small capacity end, you have Uber, Bolt, and regular taxis. Then you have our Trotros. Then you have the Metro Mass buses, and then the Ayalolo, which are supposed to be the longer buses. When I visit London, their buses are much bigger. So, for example, they have double-decker buses, and sometimes they have buses which are like two buses joined to one. So they will have more people sitting in. It seems to me as if for us, our biggest buses are the Ayalolo, and then number of seats are about 40, if I am not mistaken. Do you not think that in thinking about a transport mix, we should also think of longer, bigger buses on the right end? Because it seems as if there are too many small cars, too many taxis, too many private cars, which is also leading to congestion.
Yeah, Bernard, you are right, and you don't even need to stretch your imagination. The average bus occupies the same space that 2.5 cars occupy, and these 2.5 cars, in between each of them, they have a headroom that have to leave a distance. Now, whilst assuming all these 3 cars were full, they'll be taking 15 people. The average bus which is taking that same space takes about 50 people. If you include standing, you can go up to 60. That is not that's the simplistic part. Look at the occupancy ratio of the cars. I talked about the buses, that of the buses. The average occupancy ratio of cars going to work in the morning in Accra is about 1.8. In other words, we are putting 6 people to occupy the same space that about 16 people can occupy, using the same road we are using. That's the simple arithmetic. So yes, you are right. But how have the road been designed? Have the road been designed to be able to take double-decker buses, as you were talking about? And can the road also take what we call articulated buses, where you have bridges which cross or overpasses, and they are not high enough to take double-decker bus? You go for articulated bus, which is essentially joining 2 average buses together. At times they look like an accordion joining the 2.
Yes.
That one bus can carry quite a lot of people. But again, the way the roads are designed, the way our terminals are located, the way anybody can start a taxi station anywhere, prevents us from doing that. You know, the regulator, and that's the Ministry of Transport, it has to work with local government and other entities which the previous speakers spoke about to ensure that this system is well regulated. I'll give you just one example. When Accra Mall was built and the taxi station there started coming up, I remember making a complaint on radio that it is the duty of the city authority to decide where a taxi station should be. But in Ghana, that's not what happens. One trotro driver or one taxi driver parks here. He belongs to GPRTU. It's a powerful union. It's a union of both owners and drivers. Then the moment you want to move them away, then they start complaining to the city authorities. And will be tied you if it's an election year. Then you cannot move them. So it prevents us from using articulated buses. It prevents us from people using quality buses. That is the situation. If we don't tackle this problem from all the angles, the symptom will be importable buses, and then we are unable to finance those buses, or we are unable to maintain them. The Ayalolo station at Adenta was closed down for about 5 years. It was not working. I don't know why something that we funded with a lot of money, was closed down for a very long time. These are headed problems coming from all angles. So yes, that is why I say that take one route.
Take one.
Experiment with it. Solve all the problems on that route. The replica effect and the multiplier effect will be felt in other places.
It seems to me as if we are continuing with just getting more buses, but that's a different discussion. My last question on transportation seems to me that I think the GPRTU is not helping us. And I feel like whatever solution government wants to propose, like even the ones you just proposed, if the government does not get tough with these transport unions, we will not make any progress, because as you said, they seem to have some political clout. Politicians seem to be afraid of them. So every time they want to do something meaningful for the transport sector, GPRTU doesn't agree, and we are back in this mess. A lot of the buses, the trotters, are not even fit for our roads. You get it? A trotter that, I mean, a retrofitted van from Germany with angle bars, dirty, and people are sitting inside, and somehow no government is able to regulate this better, because I don't know whether they are afraid of losing elections or whatever. Don't you think that we have to deal with the union question or the GPRTU question if we are supposed to make any progress in urban transport management?
But I will finish my article that got an award from University of Lancaster for you. It's called The Power of Unions. And I tackled this topic. And it's not only GPRTU, it's unions in general. The moment you allow unions to be able to control, then definitely what you are doing is that you are creating a cartel, and we know what cartels do. So yes, to a large extent you are right. But it is worse than that in Ghana. Remember I said we gave them the control of the terminals. There was an attempt under airline 1961 to take it back. But assemblies, I don't think, have been able to assert their rights, their strength enough. They've made it more of a revenue function. So to the extent that the owners of the terminals, and not all terminals are controlled by GPRTU, the others which are controlled by other unions, to the extent that they collect the revenue and give them what the assembly requires, they seem to sit back. But the issue is beyond revenue. So that's one of the things that we need to deal with. And we need to also understand that our productivity as a people is hampered by an ineffective transport system. If I get to work late, whether I'm driving a private car or not, just because there is congestion, it affects the extent to which I can devote and to work throughout the day. And similarly, the person joining Trotro also gets to work late because we have not organized our system very well. So yes, the power of the unions need to be dealt with. And I'll just give you where AMA office is today, where I know you, CTFM, you've held one of those food fair and all those things there. Those who have lived in Accra long enough will tell you the struggle, and I led that anyway, the struggle we had managing to relocate. There was a station there called Nima 441. Relocating them, because they were creating a nuisance first and foremost behind the Den Hotel, and that place also belonged to AMA. Basically, the World Bank had to fund the relocation, and that's how today AMA can have their offices there. And they were relocated to a new terminal built by the World Bank Tema Station, the one behind the office of the Registrar of Companies. We ended up creating the same chaos that we had in other places as the one behind the office of the Registrar of Companies. So we leave these things because the people who are operating these terminals, whether GPRTU, Progressive Transport, whatever it is, have power. They have more votes than you and I have. To the extent we realize that it comes back to hurt us, it is important that the operators of the system and the regulators depoliticize it, as it were, consultation with all these people, show them the advantages, let them see that it will not affect their income, and help them acquire quality vehicles, and help them buy part of the licenses in the routes, and run. It helps everybody. And it's consultations and negotiations, it will work. If you wait until an election year and you want to do this, it will become a political issue and it will not work.
Thank you. Let me turn my attention to something briefly. We heard that the U.S. Congress has extended AGOA by another 3 years. The Africa Growth and Opportunity Act will give duty-free, quota-free access to selected products from African countries, and it's been there for over 20 years. The threat was that it was going to shut. Luckily, the Congress has extended it. They are waiting for the other house to do it. My question to you is, how crucial is this for Ghanaian producers, looking at our own economic situation, particularly at a time where we are told that China for the first time recorded a $1.19 trillion trade surplus, with its trading with countries in Asia, Latin America, and Africa. So the question I'm asking is, US is trying to continue with this opening of its market to Africans. The Chinese have a massive trade surplus with the rest of the world. How do you analyze this, and what opportunity does this AGOA present to our producers?
Well, AGOA 25 years ago was started as what was going to change Africa. Some of us have been around long enough to know what happened to AGOA before I come to its extension or otherwise. And I'm not against AGOA. I'm very pro any trade agreement. But over the period of AGOA, by the end of this 25th year, if my data serves me right, total Africa, US, or total imports from the US from Africa and dropped actually. We used to go, I went up to about 24 billion. My last data was about 12 billion. Now let's now deal with only AGOA related imports. Only AGOA related imports 2024 dropped to 8.8 billion from 9.3 billion the previous year. And the biggest beneficiaries were the agri sector and the fabric and as it were apparel industries. So even for that, there had been some drop. Now let's look at the overall US-Africa trade. Now overall imports from Africa from US as a percentage of trade is dropped from 2.2 to 1.4 compared to the rest of the region. So if I look at AGOA over these 25 years, it seems that Africa hasn't benefited the way it was expected. And it has not also, as it were, transformed Africa the way it was expected. I do not expect any single item to, as it were, transform Africa. Now, it must be a number of things coming together. Now, you asked about China's trade surplus.
Yes, $1 trillion.
Yes, but China at the moment, I posted a tweet the other day that I smile when I hear the news, especially main news say this country is that China is its largest trading partner. The question I ask is there any country in the world whose largest trading partner is not China at the moment? America itself, its largest trading partner is China. And notwithstanding all that people talk about, America-China trade has grown from $507 billion to $538 billion during the period of all these noise that we are making. So China trade is growing across, the world. I think what is rather important we should focus on, in addition to the extension of AGOA, at first there was a debate as to whether it to be 1 year, 2 years, etc., or 3 years. And I'm hoping that the Senate will approve it and AGOA will go on, because there are people who are benefiting from AGOA, so I'm all for AGOA. But Africa needs more trade in place of aid. So we should look at all regions and not necessarily focus on AGOA only. What we are not talking about a lot is that in 2024, at the FOCAC, that's the Forum for China-Africa Cooperation, there was an announcement by the Chinese about moving Africa's relationship with some countries to the strategic level. And most African countries did. So in 2025, June, China announced a tariff-free regime for 99% of Africa goods for 53 African countries. In other words, the whole of Africa. The only country excluded is Eswatini, of course. I think it's because they do have a diplomatic relationship with Taiwan. So that's the politics part of it. But the trade part of it is that channel is open. And for products like cocoa, coffee, value-added minerals, and all value addition, they are all the entire basket of goods that go into the AFCFTA itself are also allowed. What Africa should be doing is to be more aggressive in the negotiations to operationalize this, and in my view, to actually do it as a block. And I'm passionate about some of these things. I take the opportunity to mention
I hope this will be discussed during the Crystal Ball next week.
We have a whole session dedicated to it. Last year we did China. This year we are doing the the China opportunity in terms of the trade, and we are bringing persons who have businesses in China, a China expert, somebody in Singapore, from Singapore, who deals with it, and also the leading person leading Ghana's negotiation on this, so that businesses will have the opportunity to look at how may would they be able to tap into this. We estimate that there are opportunity about $250 billion opportunity. Lastly, but remember that once I mentioned AGOA was dropping, Africa trade with China increased by 7% last year, and it hit $116 billion. It was about $80 billion just a year or two before, but it is net in favor of China. So this opening is actually the way to turn the tide, and it's an opportunity for many businesses to take advantage.
Sounds interesting. So we're watching out for the live from around Africa segment of Crystal Ball, which will be happening on the 22nd of January. David Ofosudote is the lead partner for AB and David Africa. He spoke to us initially about the transport sector, giving us some good history there. We're also throwing in a couple of comments about the extension of AGOA for 3 years and the China opportunity. So if you want to be part of Crystal Ball, you may want to register by going online to crystalballafrica.com. CRYSTALBAL Africa.com. David, always good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Bernard.
Time check, 12 minutes past 9, City Breakfast Show. I'm going to read some comments on the transport sector. Kakra, if you can help me. So many comments coming in on how people commute and some reactions to the interviews you've done.
Jones from Nungwa says, hi Bernard, I commute to Tema daily for work. Since mid-November last year, it's always been a warfare to get a trotro both morning and evening. Some drivers still inflate the fares and the commuters are ready to pay, but the main challenge is to even get the vehicles. And also where the buses the transport minister deployed for Accra to Tema, we never saw one. From Ashaman to Afariwa Junction is 4 cities, but these trotro drivers take 10 cities during peak hours this is very bad. Another person says, good morning. I'm a trotro driver. We also have problems. That's Emmanuel.
Okay. What are your problems, trotro driver, Mr. Driver?
Good morning, team. I live on the Kaswa Winneba Road. Previously, I paid 11 Ghana cedis to La Paz, but now I can't say same due to bad roads and wicked drivers. One has to pay almost 20 Ghana cedis just to get to La Paz every day. Here's another person. Moving to and from Amasaman to Circle by public transport has been hell. From abuse of transport fares, abrupt and unilateral increases to scarcity of vehicles leading to barbaric ways of boarding vehicles, including through windows, etc. Coupled with daily traffic on the route, makes one wonder if it's a crime to stay in Ghana. This has been the situation since most parts of last year into this year. And Kwesi Japan from Amasaman sent that. Here's another person. Good morning, Bernard and team. What has happened to the Ayalolo bus? Good morning, Bernard and team. This is Simon. He says, it's a very long one. He says, for the past 2 years, I've been working closely with the transport sector. One of the key challenges we face is the lack of reliable data to help us understand where commuters are coming from and how they move. Additionally, the traffic congestion on our roads during peak hours discourages private investors from participating in the transport sector. We already have an Ayalolo yard in Adenta. Why can't we leverage this by providing sufficient buses and encouraging commuters to park their cars at the yard and board buses from there? This approach would significantly reduce traffic congestion, allow buses to turn around more efficiently, and enable faster passenger pickup. With buses operating on strict schedules, we can improve reliability, reduce congestion, and make public transport a more attractive option for commuters and investors. I think those are
a long one.
Okay, here's another one.
Charlie, people are writing. Thesis.
Yeah. Colin says, Bernard, the challenges in the urban transportation is complex. That has varieties of factors. But the fundamental factor is the limited infrastructure, i.e. roads. This affects travel time, with vehicles spending otherwise 2 or more round trips in half round trip, stuck in traffic, burning fuel for say 2 round trips. So my Uber driver decides to park during peak periods because he will waste fuel.
Yeah.
This is what caused Ayalolo's collapse. Yes, we know with other alternatives like rail will help, but this is not happening now. So as much as possible, the government can consider the intra-city roads as part of the big push.
Very important.
Good morning, Bernard and team.
Good morning.
I'm Benjamin and I live in Abeka, but I work in Adenta. Earlier this year, I decided to buy a bicycle due to the daily frustration I experienced with trotro system. The congestion, long waits, and general chaos often leave me exhausted before I even get to work. And the situation is the same when returning home. As a result, I chose cycling as an alternative means of commuting. However, I believe the current congestion challenges require broader systemic solutions. In my humble opinion, some transport unions, particularly the GPRTU, contribute significantly to the congestion on our roads. I strongly suggest that reliable services such as smart transit be expanded to cover more routes. Additionally, introducing dedicated or contra-flow lanes for specific buses during peak hours on selected routes could greatly improve traffic flow and commuter experience. Thank you.
I wonder where he writes from. When Abeka to Adenta, does he use Achimota? Does he use the George Walker Bush? It would be nice to know how he does the connection.
And that's a good exercise.
Bro, Charlie, my sister, Adenta to you
lose.
It's to be too serious, bro. Here's another one.
Here's another one. Good morning, Bernard. I'm Rafiq from Ashie. The issue with the trotro is deliberate and intentional to extort money from us. On Monday, I had to pick 3 different cars from Ashie to Shiashi. Wow. I had to pick from Ashie to Medina, then Medina to Atomic, then Atomic to Shiashi. It cost me 15.50 Ghana cedis instead of 7 Ghana cedis from Ashie to Shiashi. But I think the government has failed the citizens by allowing the transport sector to be run by private operators. The government must deploy buses as a matter of emergency or urgency. The transport minister and his deputy have to be up and doing. The talking is becoming too much.
There's a lot of comments on this.
And Bernard, for me, the question is, who is dealing with the extortion that is happening? This morning, as I was driving, I saw lots of commuters standing at bus stops and just one trotro is there and it's not even going the direction that they want. So who is dealing with it?
Nobody's regulating.
Anyway, good morning. Comments. Yeah, more comments. Good morning, Bernard and team. I live at Oyarifa and work at East Lagos Avenue. From Oyarifa to Oponglo is 6 Ghana cedis and lasts about 45 minutes. But each morning I have to spend twice the amount and time because drivers will only pick to Medina and then charge another fare for Ponglo. Sometimes these drivers will only pick Accra straight, meaning wherever you are light, even from Medina to Ponglo, you'd have to pay the Accra fare. That's unfair. That's what they do. Seriously unfair. The situation is even worse in the evening. I close at 5 p.m. and by 5:20, I'm at the bus stop. Yet I get home as late as 11 p.m. If you want to get home early, you'd have to pick from Oponglo to Medina, from Medina to Adenta, and from Adenta to Oyarifa. The Ayalolo buses and the new electric buses, which take the normal fares, are not enough.
Exactly.
You miss it. You have to pay twice or thrice the fare. With the salary and landlord on my neck, I'm really experiencing my midlife crisis in my 20s.
We will continue with these topics as we get life and breath. Godfred has been, you are just frustrated.
The young man's message sums up everything. For me, all the problems that people are dealing with. And we've spoken to all kinds of people this morning. I think Mr. Fosudote sums it up best.
Beautifully.
And how to solve the problem. And I think it further strengthens our case. Look, the government needs to deal with the GPRTU. Not sit down, drink tea, shake hands, tap on their back. Deal with them. You see, if it comes down to taking back control of the terminals,
take it back.
Take control of the terminals from them.
Yes.
And tell them that you might own the cars, but the infrastructure is the government's.
Thank you.
So we are taking the terminals away from you.
Correct.
If you want to operate in the terminal, this and this and this is what happens.
Exactly.
If you don't do that, go and park your car somewhere. Without the government allowing you to operate, you cannot operate. Okay, where the thing has reached, it's no longer, we don't need mollycoddling. They say, your good friend Gameli says there's a meeting today.
There's a meeting today, yes.
Between who and who?
The local government minister, the transport minister, and the directors of GAPTE. And of course, and then the
GPRTU will be there?
I don't think so. I think this is more the government people. Because they need to.
There is, you see, here's the thing. I don't want to sound. I understand.
No, hold on.
Let me say. You don't know what I'm going to say.
Okay.
I don't want to sound pessimistic.
Okay.
But listening to the interviews you did with MMT and GAPTE, there is very little they can do now to solve the problem. They can't even make a dent. You see, the road infrastructure is a big problem.
Yeah.
David just spoke about it. All the messages that you have there will tell you the same thing because it doesn't make business sense. So, for instance, if 12 or 15 years ago, a truck could make 6 trips and now is making 3, what are the reasons why it makes 3?
Yeah.
You understand? So the cars, when they go in one direction, can't even, they spend too much time in traffic, okay, to be able to go make a U-turn and come pick up another one. So the problems are way too big to be solved by this. We saw the temporary solution in December, which didn't work, but yeah, it kind of did something. I think we need drastic measures to solve the problem we are facing and then plan forward. So I'm asking myself these 3 questions just to wrap up for me. How many, and these are the questions off the top of my head for all the people. How many trotros or buses do you need for a city of 4 million people? And this is not just Accra, this is Kumasi as well. How many? How many trotros do we think can move? Is this sustainable?
It's not.
It is not.
So we need more larger buses,
you see,
with more space.
I listened to Mr. Samuel, was it somebody from the GPRTU? You played a voice.
Yes, it's
Mr.
called
Samuel Edu. Where's my glasses?
Yes, it's called Samuel Amwa.
Mr. Samuel Amwa, who spoke about floating vehicles being the cause. I'm sorry, Mr. Amwa, you are lying.
Hey, sure.
Oh, Bernard. He's lying.
It's not floating people.
Bernard, the scale
of this
infraction, if it is floating vehicles, it means there are more floating vehicles than GPRTU cars.
It's true.
So it's a lie.
Or they belong to other unions.
Which other union?
Protoa
don't work here. I meet more Protoa in Kumasi than here.
So it is their members.
So he cannot tell us that it is floating vehicles.
Who are doing this?
Because if you have floating vehicles, that can cause this kind of congestion from Medina all the way through to Kaswa. How many floating vehicles are in the system?
Then there are a lot. I get it.
Then it means GPRTU actually
they are not as
powerful as we think they are.
This is more serious than floating vehicles.
Exactly.
I get your point.
You see?
Second one.
That's my second one. And then the third one, yes, I've spoken about the road infrastructure and then a deliberate plan to move residents of cities, minus the congestion and all. So those are perhaps the things that we need to see going forward. But the rest,